Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Is there any public comment not on the agenda? Okay, has everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
I have.
Any changes to be made?
Move the minutes be approved as written.
Okay, the minutes are approved as written.
Guess you don't need a motion. on
Don't need a
that.
vote. No.
That's good.
Great. Aubrey, you have financial claims?
I do.
And a financial report.
So there's two, I'm gonna give you two. One, I had to get it in on the fiscal year, so I had to get these into the commissioner, so these have already been turned in. There's one for the airport, Townsend Airport improvements for $16,165.32. There's another one for Townsend Airport improvements, $40,120. There's one for Townsend Hardware for $75.94. There's one for the Church Hill Equipment Company for the mower for $1,217.46. And there's another one for some miscellaneous things from Rocky Mountain Supply for $42.77. So those are the ones that have been turned into the county commissioners and paid to get in by the fiscal year.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions on those?
Looks good.
Lance, would you clarify for us those two larger ones, what that entails, just for a recap?
And I'd have to look at the two, but I think the 16,001 was part of the preliminary engineering grant. That takes us to 90% of that grant total.
Yeah.
That's AIP 14, and then the 40,001 is basically all of the land acquisition stuff. So, and typically we would have held our invoice, but the accounting wants your invoice for what you've completed through fiscal year end, so we drew a cutoff. So we're waiting on that grant for the land, and I told Darryl they could, if they needed to, they could actually wait on processing that payment until the grant came through.
Yeah.
But that included the environmental and all of the administration of that grant. So we subcontracted the environmental, but that's what was included in that 40,001. So.
And we expect that to be fully covered, correct?
All but 10%.
90% covered. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the claims?
And I have more too, but
Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry. Those are just the ones that have already been turned in.
Oh.
These are the ones that are from this time that haven't been approved yet, that I need to turn in. Rocky Mountain Supply for $28.47. The rest of the Church Hill equipment for the rest of the labor and parts at $554.96. Rocky Mountain Supply $28.47. And this must be the.
So we had about $1,700 on that mower.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
This is the copy of that one.
That mower.
And I'm done now. And I
Yeah,
believe
that
this
mower's
is,
turned into a pretty spendy little thing.
Yeah.
Cause that was, other than the radiator leak, it was just minor problems with it supposedly.
Well, yeah, and everything, the further they dug, the more dirt they found, so
I
I
don't
mean-
think it has been maintained, I really don't.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. There wasn't much we were gonna do there. Okay,
no, I'm done.
okay. Do we have a motion to approve?
I will move to approve the financial report claims.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, claims are approved. Do you have a financial report for us?
Do not, I asked for one for Michelle this morning and she did not send me one, so I apologize for not, I can send it to you via email after that. I was short notice for hers and I just
Sure.
got back yesterday.
Yep.
I do have an estimate, for the outhouse at the airport. It's an estimate, not a bill, but just for FYI, it's $7,094 and it's, all been itemized, if you would like to see that. It's not a bill.
Yeah, and we thought there was probably a better way to do that.
Yeah.
So you're going to go this route.
I highly doubt it.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Sure. So I got a hold of Mike Delger, and he stopped out there to look at it. Dwight happened to be out there at the airport, so they had a pretty good discussion. I think that we'll be able to work out something for substantially less.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see we'll see.
That's the one at the Canyon Ferry Airport?
Yes.
Been a problem for a long time, nobody wanted to address it, Daryl.
Oh, it's not,
It
no
just-
big deal. I mean,
We'll get there.
we'll get there. Yeah.
Moving on. Lance, the floor is yours.
That was just
All right.
an estimate.
I see a very optimistic schedule here, so I gotta get through this in 10 minutes.
Well,
No,
we're
I'll
already
try
an
and-
hour ahead. So.
I'll try and be concise. So I provided a summary there, and the red basically is changes, but we're that first preliminary engineering grant was actually just through 75% design. When you have 75% design complete, it's complete in your computer, but there's really nothing to print off. So it's hard to submit. So we're beyond that 75% at this point in time, but we really have to have something that's deliverable. So we're pushing to 100% design. The last 25% for the actual design fees will be covered under this next year's granting period. But we really have to have something deliverable, and so we'd have to get to at least 95% just to have paper. Otherwise, it just exists in a computer model. You actually have to sheet it out from the computer model so that it makes sense in a construction plan. So we anticipate closing that grant in September. That's the end of the federal fiscal year, is the end of September. So our goal is to try and get that grant closed before we eclipse their fiscal years. It helps the FAA out, and we like to scratch their back whenever we can. So that's where we are at with that grant. We're up to 90% with that pay request, which is kind of the limit until substantial completion. So we won't invoice again until we get it done. The land acquisition is complete. We had everything to the county for the final report. We have to do a final land report, which includes an administrative settlement request, which is a very basic request that just says the airport board and county determined it was in the best interest, public's best interest, to pay $100,000 instead of the appraised value of $95,000. That's pretty simple for that amount, rather than extended negotiations. I mean, condemnation was never considered, but it is so extremely expensive that the administrative settlement request is pretty simple for a $5,000 increase, and a certificate of title from the county attorney. The county's actually returned those documents earlier this week or late last week. So we'll be submitting that to the FAA very quickly, and then we're waiting on the FAA grant offer. So they already have the draft report. They knew everything was in process, so I would anticipate that grant offer within the next 3 weeks, month. Otherwise, they'll be closing in on their fiscal year end. So, and then we'll get all of those funds reimbursed, and we'll try and close that grant immediately. The major project still hanging out there. We've just been talking with the FAA regarding funding. They're already getting nervous. You'll notice, or you may notice, that we've been kind of hanging with a $5 million project cost estimate for a long time. We have increased that to $6 million. That is due to most recent bid prices that we've seen this year from all the projects that went out this year. Some of them were bid this year and open bids, and they're for next year's construction because they plan to get awarded so late. So we actually have pretty adequate or accurate, what we feel, bid prices. So this is kind of based on the average bid price would equate to a $6 million project, not what we expect to be low. But I can tell you, last year when we come up with, or 2 years ago when we had a $5 million estimate, we were taking the average bid price and inflating them 10% a year. We have exceeded that. So when you go 15% a year, times 2 years in a row, and then you look at next year, it starts making you awful nervous, and every project has been coming in over budget. FAA's running short. So we don't want to do that. We want to lock up as much money as we can with the FAA, and we're pushing them because they're already trying to, because this year's project all came in over budget. They're already like, well, do you need all that state apportionment, or could we, rob $400,000 and budget it someplace else? And we're like, no. Here's our cost estimates. That is also with the additive alternates, which includes the apron expansion and the next taxi lane. I guess it'd be the third taxi lane for more hangar development. So those are going to be bid as alternates in case funding's not available. That would be FAA funding not available or local funding not available to reach those. So
That's just kind of where it's at. The funds really add up to real close to that amount. We show that we'd still be slightly short of 6 million, but probably still reachable. And then November would be the time frame. With a $6 million project, we have a $600,000 local share. We'll go after all of that $600,000 in Montana Aeronautics grant funding. You're not going to get the full 600,000, but we'd sure hope that they'll come up with like 350, 400 would be my best guess. But it's all dependent on how much money they have available. They generate that money through aviation fuel tax. How much money they have available versus the requests that they have that year, because they spend all their money every year. So if they have a lot of requests, the money just doesn't trickle out as far. So that's kind of the summary with the major construction project, overall project summary. And then the next, or I guess if we skip down a couple of agenda items, the next agenda item is capital improvement plan. Capital improvement plans, it's on I guess the bottom of the second and then the top of the third page. These are annually updated. They serve a couple of main purposes. Coming into these main projects, they help the FAA budget for really big projects. They also justify your $150,000 a year in non-primary entitlement, as well as now the bipartisan infrastructure law money. So capital improvement plans should be optimistic yet realistic. We want to show enough project needs to generate that $150,000 a year, and the non-primary entitlement fund, or in the non-primary entitlement funds, as well as the bipartisan infrastructure law money. So I always tell people, near term, next 2-3 years, realistic. Long term, 6 years out, optimistic. Because if you don't show any project improvements, the FAA won't give you that money every year. And then when we get to 2027 and you say, oh, well, we want to, whatever, expand or buy more land or put in a weather station, you don't have the money. So near term, realistic, long term, optimistic. But yet realistic. So this is a summary of your funding to date. In 2024, you're actually going to have 1.7 million. That's pretty much all going to go towards that major project, though. The FAA is going to supplement that with state apportionment funding, which is where the rest of the FAA money is going to come from. But this is the kind of your FAA bank account that's specific to Townsend. Keep in mind this is 90% money, so it always requires a 10% local share. And then moving beyond that, you'll generate $150,000 a year. And if you look at that second row down, kind of in that yellow column, it says BIL accumulation. That's bipartisan infrastructure law. You'll notice that you had 159 and 145. It's fluctuating. So you're going to get money for at least the next 3. That was a 5-year bill. So you're going to get funds, I expect, about the same amount for the next 3 years, at least. So I have a yellow box there where you're going to accumulate, but I didn't venture a guess to want to put in what the dollar amount's going to be because it's fluctuating slightly across the nation.
What causes it to fluctuate?
As the airports change in status, they have different level of airports, even general aviation airports, they have 4 levels, and some of them are getting, like Twin Bridges got 109,000 in the first round instead of 159,000. They're a lower level because of the number of based aircraft is what triggered it. And they were right below the threshold, so I actually told them you should increase your base aircraft count if you can, because you generate $50,000 more. So it's a total pool of money, that that bipartisan infrastructure law was, and as airports change in status, the division just changes slightly. So it'll be in that range. So with that, what you put out there last year is on my last sheet there. You had the major project improvement in 2023 as well as land. We're going to complete land. We didn't complete all of that land, so keep that in mind as we start discussing this, whether or not you want to continue to show some land acquisition. You need to shift the major project to 2024 as well as increase that dollar amount to the $6 million would be my recommendation. And then you had weather station out in 2025, security fencing 2025, master plan and the master plan and then land and extension kind of 27, 2028 and 2029 all had to do with the optimistic view of extending the runway and possibly widening the runway. There's a lot of issues with the fairgrounds to see that happen. That's pretty optimistic in my opinion. The grandstands would be in the runway protection zone if that runway were to be widened. I don't know how feasible. It's not bad to try and protect for it. What's going to happen in 20 years? Well, we don't know. You may need to do that. The county may be, need more land for their fairgrounds and find an alternative location. You never know. So it's good to protect for it, but I don't know how realistic that is. So we can continue to show it. I'm not against continuing to show it, but I'd keep pushing it out to the end of the planning period because I don't think it's super realistic. I think it's pretty optimistic. But showing those project needs out at the end is a good way to justify your funds. And then pavement maintenance in 2028, we could actually shift that to 2029 because your pavements won't be rebuilt until 2024, and then 5 years would be 2029 for pavement maintenance. So I would continue to show that, and typically we would just increase that 5%, from 290 to 300, just because we're shifting it 1 year. So that would be kind of my initial thoughts on it. I guess I'd just open it up for discussion. The only other thing that I've run into here recently is we have been trying to get tractors for airports. You're eligible for snow removal equipment, always have been. A lot of times counties say, oh, well, it's cheaper for us to plow, with our own, or we contract it, and that's cheaper because we don't have personnel or whatever, qualified personnel to do it. Some counties do that. We've been getting pickups in trucks, highway grade, really nice snow plows. They're probably most counties, they're the nicest snow plows they own, are their airport snow plows. We've been trying to get tractors for a long time, probably about 7 years, and Buy American's been real difficult for tractors. Finally found a dealer out of Conrad that said, oh, if I add in all these U.S. made implements, I can meet that 60% threshold. If I add in a snowblower that's 100%, and a broom, and a box end plow, and I add all these implements in, I can meet the 60% threshold, which is the minimum required for an amendment or a waiver, a Buy American waiver. And he's bidding tractors. So he bid 2 for us in Shelby and Conrad this year. And they look like they're going to go to award. So that's kind of the only thing that's changed here recently, is that we have been able to obtain some tractors.
What kind of tractors has he been?
They're John Deere tractors. These ones,
yellow John Deere's?
yeah, they were 110s, I believe, horsepower.
I can't remember what that one was. It was actually a big front end loader, and then we got the plow and so on with it.
Yep.
In Rosebud County, and it's excellent. We looked at a lot of different ones. Colstrip opted for one of the lighter duty ones. I think it was a New Holland, and after the fact,
Was it a bidirectional?
Yes.
Yeah, so those were 110s. They were 110 horsepower. So
I think the one in Forsyth is a lot bigger horsepower. It
Oh.
had like a 2 1/4 yard bucket on it or something like that.
Yeah,
And of course, the bucket came with it along with the plow and.
yeah. Those bidirectionals were a good deal for a while. A lot of people liked them, but they quit making them. So they met Buy American. They quit making them. So then that was our avenue to. A lot of airports got those bidirectionals, and you could put implements on both ends. And they're pretty nice. A lot of people wanted 130 horsepowers instead of 110 to run big box end ramp plows, but we couldn't get them. So now we can't get them at all. So
Yep.
John Deere's not as green as it used to be. So they backed out a long time ago, but like I say, we finally found somebody that would bid them. So something to consider for out in the future. But I guess just discussion. Do you want to right off? shift 2023 to the major project to 2024. Land acquisition, do you want to, we approached that larger parcel and I think he was thinking numbers beyond what we all were thinking. Do you want to continue to show it on your CIP? And if so, do we want to increase the dollar amount, or we just kind of want to?
Well, I can't remember what what was he asking? Do you remember?
He didn't.
Or maybe Daryl does.
Yeah.
Joe was asking?
I don't know that he
For the
ever really
50.
named a price.
He just maybe
Outright,
didn't
he-
give a number.
Basically, just looked at our number and said, "You're not close."
Well, I think it makes sense to continue to pursue, because I mean, we wanna get that taxiway in there if we get that in there, so I think we need to continue to have discussions.
So we just shall I
We're gonna
look
need
back?
to increase if he's not, wanting to.
And I don't know that we need to increase from 520. That was probably just an earmark number that we were like, oh, let's throw a number in there, because what the offer was to him was based on the appraisal, right? So I just don't remember offhand. It wasn't 500,000 that the offer went out, but do you want to just? I can look that up and
It was appraised to, times 1.1%. I think it was 10% over or something, which was the most we could offer by law, I think. I don't remember what that number is either, but.
I have your March notes, but I don't.
Yeah, and I apologize. I should have. It's always a little touchy throwing all that information, but then because you're dealing with
Yeah.
private parties, and so I'm always a little. It is.
Never
I mean,
know.
it's public money, but when you're having negotiations, it's a little hard because you're dealing with a private entity, so you're always trying to ride that balancing act the best you can. So I can look that number up. Do you just want to shift that land acquisition out into, the future a few years and then just kind of keep it on there for roughly maybe double what the appraised value was this year, and hope that that's kind of in the range of what that landowner might be looking for?
Yeah,
I don't see why we wouldn't.
I think we need to leave it on
Like you said.
the calendar. And how far we're gonna bump it up, I have no idea.
Couple of
2026, get a couple of years beyond the reconstruction project. This is annually updated, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can update it next year to whatever is more realistic, you think?
yeah, we don't have anything in 2026, so let's put it in 2026.
okay.
I'm good with that.
And I'll look back at what that appraisal was and put roughly double what that appraisal was, plus some the administration costs on it. AWAS has been kind of a topic. You guys still wanting to keep that in 2025?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I like that.
Okay. And we can run, depending upon where we end up putting that, your electrical system will be can and duct, which means it's got junction cans and conduit everywhere, and we can run that as long as we run the same cable with the same insulation value. We can run that power through the same conduits with the lighting system. So
Perfect.
It's not a big deal. You got a contractor out there for him to put a separate conduit in to cover that though. And you keep from mixing conductors up, and makes a lot cleaner.
But they're doing the
operate.
electrical with the runway
Yeah.
project, so you
We-
might as well set up for it.
And we've been color coding all the cables. So we have a system so that people are aware, electricians are more aware. Black's the common color, so we typically use that for the primary runway because it's the most cable.
Right.
And then for PAPIs, we use red and white. Makes sense, right? Red and white for PAPIs. For weather stations, wind cones, we use orange. And then for beacons, we use green. So if you show up on an airport project and it starts, you call us up, I can tell you exactly what circuit it is, because you're mixing low voltage, high voltage, constant current regulators, you
But
name
when
it.
when you start getting multiple cables in, if you have trouble with one cable, you have a world of trouble getting one cable out and another one in.
Yeah,
That's,
For sure.
that's the nice part of when you're doing the runway construction, you put a separate conduit in and earmarked strictly for that.
Makes good sense.
Conduit and a little bit of labor that goes along with that is pretty cheap compared to the rest of the project.
I'll take a look at where it's gonna get sited and where that electrical enclosure is gonna be, and we can consider it. Okay. Yeah, and typically we often site them in with the wind cone, because the wind cone, you want good clearance around the wind cone as well. And the wind cone's typically on the runway circuit. So a lot of times there's just two cables running out to it, out and back. So, okay. And you have to have independent power for those weather stations. They have to have independent power. So we can't have it just turn on when the runway lights turn on, or you'd never charge the batteries. So, still thinking wildlife security fence. Want to kick that out further? How serious
I don't
is
think
that?
we're really having any problem with wildlife. over
I know
there.
it was brought to my attention from Chris out there that it's gotten a little out of control with all of his students at nighttime, but I don't, like, and then with some of the lighting not being lit up, like, it's a concern for him. I think that's when I initially brought it up, was when he said
With all the
something to
what
me.
at nighttime, I missed that.
Like the deer that come on and that kind of thing.
Anyway, let's keep it. I think we should push it a year since everything else has been
Yeah.
pushed,
We
correct?
definitely want to keep it in there though, because could be that hospital plane starts having some trouble with deer on the runway and we'll have to address it.
Yep, 2026.
Yep, that's a good year for it.
Okay. And then shall we kick all we talked about the pavement maintenance already, those other three items, the master plan, the land for approach protection, the extension. Shall we kick all those 1 year as well? Because that'd push it to the end of the planning period out into 2030.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Any other wish list items or anything like that?
I think we're talking about it later, Adam, I think you had it on, but with the ongoing problems with the fuel tank situation, whether it's the pump, the tank, whatever, if we need to overhaul the whole system. I don't know if that's something that we can look into. I just think it's kind of like the mower. I think the tractor that you've brought up is probably something that is of interest to me down the road. I don't, now that we got the mower up and running right now and we've got the snowplow under control for the most part. But those two things seem to be issues we're dealing with now, recurrent problems that maybe.
Yeah, the fuel system is timing out and becoming a maintenance issue, and we've been missing a bunch of days.
I think we ought to stick that in 2025 at the latest.
The fuel system. So maintenance on fuel systems isn't eligible. So we'd have to.
A new system?
Gonna take the new
I mean,
state-of-the-art
maybe not a new tank, but you'd have to do some sort of major improvements. Otherwise, if your credit card reader goes out, the FAA won't pay for you to replace your credit card reader, as an example.
Right.
They consider that general maintenance, and that's your responsibility, just like mowing or fixing a light bulb in your runway lights or whatever. But a major, effort, or a total replacement.
Total replacement of the fuel system. But that wouldn't necessarily mean the tank also, would it?
I don't know. I can't say, fuel systems haven't been eligible long enough for, you guys were about the first ones that put in an FAA eligible fuel system through the AIP program. So you'd be about the first ones to replace a fuel system through the AIP program.
I
I
just
don't know
know
the
that
answer to
there's
that for
like
sure.
Dwight has expressed, and Adam, you've been part of it, sumping has been an issue, the sediment that's in it, like the whole system seems to be a little.
Yeah, we've had problems with the tank, the motherboard, the pumps, the fuel level gauges. Basically every system except the tank has been an ongoing maintenance item lately.
So
I
you're
would-
thinking like total replacement, except for the tank, and then maybe a hot wash of the tank. Try and clean out
Yes.
the tank completely.
Makes sense.
That wouldn't
Something
hurt
like
it.
that.
And an inspection.
That's something that I'd have to, I mean, obviously a total replacement as long as it's past its useful life, which I can't, I'll have to look up when we put that in, maybe you guys know.
It was prior to 2008.
I was guessing 2007 actually, so I think it was 2007, but I'm not sure. So, my guess, most electrical is 10 years, weather stations are 15 years as far as useful life. Most everything else is 20-year useful lives. I'm guessing it's either 10 or 15 for something
Fuel
like
system.
that, just for a fuel
Because of the
system.
electronics. And a lot of that's been replaced when we had the lightning strike. A lot of that was replaced.
Yeah. So I'm guessing it's probably 10 or so then it's eligible for total replacement. So then the question with the FAA is, can we somehow finagle a bid to say, well, you can replace it all, or you could reuse the tank if you'd like to, as long as you hot wash it and inspect it, but give us a price for one or the other. So I'll talk to the FAA. You're thinking 2025 for that?
Let's
I
shoot-
think sooner than later because
Yeah,
it's
let's shoot for that because the kind of problems we've been having, they don't get better. They just become more often.
I'll probably budget that with using your BIL, bipartisan infrastructure law money.
And then regarding the snow equipment, what we are doing is working well. I mean, I don't anticipate that changing, do you?
No, but, there's times when they have other things to do.
Yeah.
But I think what we have, the relationship we build now, will continue to work until
Until it doesn't.
until we get to the point where we can get our own equipment.
Is that something you would
But that's not
say
gonna-
we
yeah.
put in it?
I'm just gonna say it's not gonna last forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have so much on here, it probably doesn't matter. You can either put it on out towards the end. We could start dropping some of that. You're adding so much in now that we could start dropping some of that extension and, widening and the RPZs if you wanted to, and just say that that's beyond the planning period. Start adding in, SRE and SRE building. If you buy the equipment, you have to house it inside. They don't want to sit
Right.
outside, so buildings are not cheap. So, otherwise, realistically, it's 2026, probably at the earliest anyway. So you could always, reevaluate that next year. So I guess that's kind of
Yeah, those buildings aren't just a tin shed. They have to be heated.
heated, insulated.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They've
And
been
when
through
you
that.
build them with Davis Bacon wage rates, they're really expensive. The carpenters that, are 18 are making $40 an hour plus fringe. I mean, it's,
Okay, so
yeah.
we've added the fuel system in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
What is the consensus on snow removal equipment, adding it in, 2028 or something?
Mm-hmm.
that sounds right.
Or swap it out for the runway extension.
yeah, do you want to drop some of that other stuff since you have so much
Keep
shown
that
on there?
runway extension out off the end.
Yeah, that's not a
Yeah.
limiting factor for medical flights or anybody else.
No, I don't think so.
And like I say, extensions are, if you don't widen,
Yeah.
at a 60-foot wide runway, it's very difficult to justify an extension because the
Right.
type of aircraft that you would be saying needs an extension
Right.
needs a wider runway. So
Right.
then when you widen and become a non-utility airport, which means more than 12,500 pound design operating weight, which is the same type of aircraft we're talking about,
Yep.
it increases your runway protection zones.
Yep.
And the grandstands. The runway protection zone isn't an approach surface; it's an area.
Mhm.
No matter what the height is, it's a ground area, and they want that clear.
Mm-hmm.
It's where crashes happen. The Hamilton crash that just occurred happened right in the RPZ. And that guy crashed in the runway protection zone. So he crashed on land that the airport controls through an easement, and they control it to restrict what can get built in there. And that's where that crash occurred. It was a pretty catastrophic crash. So that's, you know, so you're thinking drop the master plan, the land for protection, and the runway extension, drop all three of those? They're on your airport layout plan, so they're always on your plan for 20 years. We're just not showing it for funding because we're only showing out to 2030, and you'd basically be saying that that's beyond that planning period.
I think that's pretty safe. I don't anticipate that happening with,
It's gonna require a lot
with
of
the rodeo
coordination.
grounds. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So we're dropping the extension and the approach protection.
And the master plan, the 2027 master plan.
Because
Yeah,
they go hand in hand.
that pushes that out.
So maybe put the tractor on 28, the pavement maintenance on 29.
I'm fine with that.
Do you want me to rehash it? Trying to tell you what it is?
Sure,
Sure.
yeah, I
Okay.
think we got pretty good notes, but
Okay, so major project shifts to 2024. That land acquisition, we're going to shift to 2026 at roughly double the appraised value plus admin costs. I'll just round that. The weather station stays in 2025. I'll look into consideration for a separate conduit. We're going to shift the wildlife security fencing to 2026. Pavement maintenance goes to 2029. And then we're going to add in a fuel system in 2025. And then we're going to throw in SRE, snow removal equipment, and snow removal equipment building in 2028. And even if we only get one piece of snow removal equipment, whatever it is, we'd probably build at least a 2-bay garage building so that to house what we would view as your ultimate fleet. So if you get a pickup or a truck and a tractor, we're not building a new building
Right.
in 5 years later.
Right.
okay.
I got a question. I just sitting here thinking, you know, as we improve the new portion of the airport that we're going to, where the new hangar and taxiways and stuff can be built, how does a well play into that? Having water on that side of the airport. Is that something it's something we just need to do on our own?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not eligible.
Okay.
So that
It's a
would be it.
difficult discussion in a lot of locations.
Yeah,
We'd put some wells in with county ARPA money at airports because they don't have any. Of course, I don't know what you did with your ARPA money, but I'm sure you had a lot of needs.
The city got it.
Yeah. There's a lot of needs out there, so it's always was stretched thin, but so yeah.
Okay.
And all the leases say it's up to the hangar owner, correct?
Hmm?
The leases say it's up to the hangar owner to supply their own.
Well, I mean, we probably need water for our own purpose over there, don't we?
Eventually, it's hard
Well,
because if you have a hangar, you can't let every hangar drill their own well.
Right.
It doesn't work that way, and have their own septic, and you don't have the space. So you get into this conundrum of if you want water, all you hangar owners have to get together to put together a well together, so that everybody can tap into it and
Well,
then pay for
especially
it.
if we're thinking of moving that FBO spot over to that other
Sure.
side,
Oh, yeah.
it may be a good thing to.
And if you have enough connections, it becomes a public water supply well as well. If you have enough connections into it, and then it has to meet public water supply well requirements. So it is quite the
Can of worms.
difficulty for airports as they grow that don't have that infrastructure. So at this time, it's not eligible. It's a good question though, because
Yeah.
we run into it in a lot of locations. So. Good with that?
Yep.
I think so.
You guys want a motion for per those changes? I can take a recommendation from the board to the commissioners.
I'll move to amend the, is it AIP?
Capital improvement plan.
Capital Improvement Plan, as stated with the amendments of.
I will second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to improve the new capital improvement plan as stated. Is there any further discussion?
What kind of a figure did you put on that land acquisition up there for 2024?
I didn't, I
He's
said
gonna look it up.
roughly double the appraised value plus plus administration cost, which is the same basically as what we put into this
And
one.
that was out 2024?
2026.
26.
Mhm.
And I'll send it back to the board, just so you guys have it too,
Okay.
when I send it to the county.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I gotta run in negative time here, so.
You're good.
The next agenda item was FAA-based aircraft inventory. The FAA sent out a checklist with the capital improvement plan, and they said, hey, it's coming up again. We need everybody to update their based aircraft inventory. I can't do that, so I'll link up with Dwight, and that's you have to enter all the N numbers, all the tail numbers for all the aircraft, and then they cross-check. That's based aircraft. They cross-check to make sure they're not claimed at another airport in the nation, because they don't want to get them getting claimed in two different locations. So if it's claimed here and claimed in California, it'll just nix it from both of you and won't validate. So
I believe quite a while ago, Aeronautics recommended the board amended or accepted it that my aircraft is actually based in Townsend.
and I would recommend continuing to do
Yes,
that.
yes.
Any aircraft that you know that are based at a ranch or
Including
a
Dwight's.
farm or wherever within the county, claim them, talk to the owner of the aircraft and claim it here.
Right.
So,
Okay, I'll have to bring that up to
We
Dwight,
have-
or you can.
yeah, and I'll look at it. I can look at how many you have claimed. I just can't I can't log in, and
Yeah,
the airport
well,
manager's
there's
got to
nothing
log in. So,
stipulates how many days a year it has to be on that airport.
yep.
I mean, you base it there, and it's a movable piece of equipment.
Yep. So I would recommend to continue to do so. They're still aircraft that are most commonly utilizing this airport, even if, getting
Yeah.
fuel, whatever. They're probably in and out of here just as much as anybody else, whether or not they've got a hangar there or not. So,
Yeah.
yep. And it can, it's kind of a requirement that 10 is the minimum they want you to have. So
Yeah.
there's some issues if you're below 10, and we've done some backflips for a couple of airports in the state. So, okay, so I'll work on that with Dwight. I'll email him on that. The next item is just a discussion decision on disadvantaged business enterprise goal. So, part of any project that's going to spend more than $250,000 in any federal fiscal year, you have to have a disadvantaged business enterprise goal. DBEs would be women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, things of that nature. Not small business, they have to be disadvantaged businesses. So, for the past 17 years, we've been running race-neutral goals, which means non-mandatory goals. It means we set a goal and we go about trying to achieve that goal through neutral means, which that means is don't only bid $3 million construction projects that only large contractors can win. Look at unbundling contracts, bidding separate contracts, doing public or DBE outreach, trying to encourage, monitor DBE usage, which we do, and we do all these steps for you, always have. Monitor DBE usage and report DBE usage. If they hire a DBE, don't let them, fire DBEs without a process, so that they can't just discriminate.
Right.
So we are still recommending utilizing a race neutral goal, and the reason for that is MDT Civil Rights is still recommending using race neutral goals. They're obviously the most applicable thing that we can relate to in airports is highways, right? Those are the same types of contractors for the most part. So we lean heavily on MDT Civil Rights. We work with their staff quite a bit, and they're still recommending a race neutral goal, which means non-mandatory, and we try and achieve that goal through race neutral means. And I say we, you all, but we help you through that process. This is becoming more difficult because MDT Civil Rights just did a disparity study, and they showed discrimination in the disparity study. So there is a possibility that FAA Civil Rights could kick this back and say, no, you have to set mandatory goals. And maybe it's a 5% mandatory goal, and we can get 2.7 or 2.8% through race neutral means. But there's a possibility. But MDT Civil Rights is basically saying, no, turn forward race neutral goals, make the FAA say that, because we all know that if we have mandatory DBE goals, costs will just...
Well, and then you can't, in this country, very, very few contractors will even consider that.
So there is per the disparity study, they just turn out, they know how many civil engineering companies there are registered in the state. They compare that number to how many DBEs say they can do airport engineering. So on airport engineering, we have a 12.8% goal, meaning that in theory, you all could find, if you went out and found a bunch of civil engineers, you could find 12% that are DBEs that can do airport engineering in Montana. I can tell you, there are 0 DBE engineering firms that do airport engineering. 0.
Yeah.
There is not a single DBE that represents an airport in Montana. So there's very few engineering companies that do airport engineering to begin with. So I know them all very well, and there aren't any. So I mean, I don't know how, if we had to meet 12% DBE usage through like subcontracted, where we would have to subcontract, I don't even know how we'd do that. We do use one of the gals that did in the environmental, one piece of the environmental. She's a DBE, women-owned business. We use her. There is an electrician out of Helena, South Hills Electric. They're 51% owned by a woman, and they're a DBE. We work with them all the time. They will be competitive on this project. They're out of Helena, and they do a lot of airport engineering, and they really like working with us. So I'm certain they will bid it. Whether or not they win or not, I don't know. But they're not getting discriminated against. Those ones are. As far as we just don't run into it. So we run into specific DBEs that do bid projects. There's some fencing companies and stuff, and wildlife fencing companies. The company that put in the fence in Hamilton or in Ennis was a DBE. The one that put it in Hamilton was not. So as an example of this, we had very good usage in Ennis. We bid 2 very large projects. They were both about $15 million each. We had really good usage in Ennis because the electrician was South Hills, they're a DBE. The fencing was a DBE, and we had a couple other like coal tar, small stuff, painting that were DBEs. We bid the same, nearly the same exact project. The same prime contractor won it. SK Construction, Riverside won both of them. We had 0 usage on the other one because the subs that won that other project weren't DBEs. It's just the way the bids worked out.
Yep.
So it's a difficult one, but I just that's our recommendation, is a 7.8% race neutral goal, meaning non-mandatory goal, and we continue to complete all those steps on your behalf. I actually attended a meeting less than a month ago with MDT Civil Rights. FAA Civil Rights was there. The FAA was there. It was held in Helena, and there was like 50 some airports there that were represented, and we were presenting upcoming projects based on everybody's capital improvement plans, trying to increase outreach to DBEs and increase participation. So those are just the types of steps that we do to try and maintain this race neutral, to keep these projects as reasonable as we can. So I guess with that, I'd be looking for discussion and or a recommendation to take back to the commissioners on moving forward with a 7.8% race neutral goal.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we have a lot to add on what you've said. At least I certainly don't.
You can only do so much when you don't have the resources. I mean.
Right.
Okay, would you like a vote on that?
Yeah, I suppose so, just so that I can take it to the commissioners with your recommendation.
So we're looking for a motion that says our goal is the 7.8% as recommended for our race neutral goal.
Okay, well, I will move to approve an 7.8% race neutral goal with regard to the disadvantaged businesses enterprise goal.
I'll second.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Who seconded?
Bob.
Bob.
Bob?
Thanks.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, that was it.
That was enlightening, thank you.
Yeah, DBE is tough, but when you start the potential to run into issues, usually it's been kind of in the back burner. We've been running race neutral for 15 years, but
Yeah.
I remember the days of race conscious goals where we had mandatory goals and we had mandatory surveyors essentially, and they.
When the FAA comes up with the one shoe fits everyone, it never works.
Well, and then those DBEs, they are mostly small. There's thresholds. So then when everybody's trying to get, even if like South Hills, they are not looking for more work. They won South Hills Airport Electrical Company. They do a lot of highways, signing, lights, airports. They won the two main projects that we bid this year, Conrad and Dillon. They're not like looking for more work. So if everybody has to use them, they will soon eclipse the threshold and not be a DBE anymore. So it just, there's, everybody starts looking for these, women-owned surveying companies, whatever, and everybody, and then pretty quick, you need a surveyor on your job, and you can't get them.
Or contractors.
We wiped out a bunch of stakes. We need you to come back. No, well, we can't get there for 3 weeks. And then you have a job shut down because you're relying on DBE,
Right.
and you can't go just fire them and hire somebody else without going through a process. So I remember the days. It was about 18 years ago, I think, so I was pretty early, but I remember working with some of those, and there's just some of them are very good, but there's only so much they can do as well. So it's not their quality. It's just that then everybody wants to use those select few that are very, very good, and they just get overwhelmed in a very quick hurry. So it's a discussion point that I'm having with everybody now because I'm concerned where this is headed with FAA civil rights. So we'll see. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, we're going to move back to the 620 item, update discussion decision, airport lease agreement addendum. Do we have any update on that?
Yeah, no, we just got the lease agreement done, and I think that they want to look at that and make sure they get all their legalese correct. So
Yeah.
it'll probably
So we're still waiting on
Still
county
waiting on-
attorneys.
on attorneys, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Then put it on the agenda for next month.
I suppose.
Fair.
Yep.
Keep it there until we get the information.
Yeah, you bet.
Mhm.
Okay, I believe this one, draft hangar construction application process document. We decided what we wanted on it, and then Abra was nice enough to get it all typed up for us, which she included here. I think it's the last thing in the packet that she gave you. I had a chance to look over it on email, and I had nothing to add or amend. Did anybody else get a chance to look at that?
I haven't yet.
I guess it'd be the last 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that.
You don't have it?
Mine ends with the minutes. Thanks.
Aubrey, did a gentleman call you from, it was down in the Bozeman, Belgrade area, and wanted to get on the list for building a hangar?
Brian Foster?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
How are you?
Yep.
Fine. Thank
I
you.
talked to you on the phone.
This one. And I've got another one here too, if anybody needs one.
Thank you. Do you want this back?
Sure. So we would be looking for a motion to either amend or approve. What she did was combine the document I came up with last meeting. Took parts of, I believe it was Madison or something, and then also included our existing requirements for hangar construction on the Townsend City County Airport document.
Looks good to me.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
You put Lisi, isn't this what you spell Lisi?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, yeah.
I'm gonna double check that. That's weird. Spelling.
Lacey, yeah.
I copied it from that document.
Does this need further approval from?
Well, I think we just wanna approve it as an internal document for our own use.
Yeah, I meet with attorneys tomorrow morning, so I'll give this to them and then
Okay.
we'll go from there.
Okay, so what we're gonna do then today is give it our blessing to pass on to the
Yep.
county attorneys. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll move to accept the lease application and hangar construction requirement form.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept it as is. Is there any further discussion?
I don't think so. I mean, as long as,
I think we got everything covered. I was just double checking. Remember the problem we had with Chuck when he was trying to put a floor on that one hangar, and the hangar wasn't really tied down sufficiently, and that was when Al was still alive, and he came up with the fix that would take care of that as far as pouring it in and tying the building down to that concrete floor. But applicable building codes covers that, so. So I'll make sure it was there.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is approved for passing on. Okay. Okay, next item we have is review hangar lease requests.
So I got from Daryl, I got Seth's, Wolfram's,
Mhm.
I got Daniel, what is it,
Finney.
Finney, and then Brian Foster called me on July 12th.
Okay, so we have 3 here and we have 1
Yes.
more, correct?
That we have pending, I guess.
And then also, I got the other one to Wade Litton. He
Yeah.
completed it, he sent it back, and he sent it in the mail, instead of bringing it to me, so, otherwise I had it to you tonight. So when it shows up in the mail, then we'll have to go through the thing for you again.
Yeah. So the issue we have now is we have 2 lots available currently. And then we have, not counting Wade's, who already has a hangar there.
Yeah.
We have 4 we need to review.
Seth, Daniel, Brian, who's the 4th one?
This gentleman here.
This is Brian.
Oh,
This is Brian, this is Brian.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, this is Brian Foster.
Okay, so 3.
I didn't really know either, but
Okay.
I assumed that was him.
Mm.
And I don't have his application, I just have his, that he did call, and I timestamped it.
And per our new agreement here, applications will be considered at the monthly airport board meeting. Order of priority for consideration will be based on the order in which the completed written application was received. Do you have an order on those?
I know Seth's was one of the first ones, they've been waiting for a current airport lease agreement.
Yep.
That doesn't have a date on the Finney one, Daryl? They don't have a date on theirs, or did they sign it somewhere?
Yeah, there should be taken.
Um,
But actually, Seth, they had theirs in a long time ago.
Yeah, Seth had theirs a long time ago, but
We
I just
just-
wasn't sure about Finney's.
Well, no, Finney's not a new, he bought Al Irving's hangar.
Okay, that's the Auburn,
So-
so really, we
Yeah,
only have
it's
one.
Oh,
not
so
a-
we only have the
one
2.
to
That's not a
Brian.
construction.
It's not a new
Brian Foster.
construction, yeah,
Yeah, it's
And
not.
his.
I'll count that as a win.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Uh,
price really went up, that's the.
Yeah.
We're getting there
Showed up on the
again.
right day.
Yeah.
So the only one that's pending is Brian's then.
And
Well,
Sons,
wait.
because his is a new yours is a new construction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, all right.
So 2 spots, 2 applicants.
And who's what's the name of the person that bought the Irving hangar?
Finney.
Dan Finney. And I gave Albert all
There you go.
their contact information.
Yeah, I have it.
So Wade is his application also, but he's mailing it.
Yeah, but he bought an existing hangar.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not new construction.
A transfer.
Yeah.
Is this all one? It is.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, this is Irving.
Do you have plans, or where are you at in your?
In the initial stages.
Okay.
You know, I've identified, or my wife and I are both pilots, and we've identified that this is where we'd like to be. It is kind of an ideal match. We've got a J3,
Okay.
so it's kind of an ideal match for.
Are you a local guy here, or?
So 25 years in Billings,
Oh.
making sure to put that in there before I say 3 years in Bozeman.
Yeah.
For a job application, so.
Okay.
So not here. I would say it, probably in 10 years we will be,
Okay.
once we get closer to retirement age.
Gotcha.
And the intent, you know, for us, is probably.
I'm sorry, can you come up to the,
Uh,
my-
good.
every-
There's
every-
something about that. little
yeah,
thing.
everything's recorded, so thank you, yeah.
So my name is Brian Foster. Our intent is, again, we're in the initial stages of this. I've made some phone calls. I have an idea of what we're getting into cost-wise. Is minimally for the J3, and I would think long-term planning for us. We've got some kids who have some interest as well. I'd probably want to prepare for a couple aircraft in there, purely because if we add something in the family, I see this as The cub will never leave the family, and it's a means for me to ensure that once one of my kids ends up with the cub, they're not stuck with the burden and having to do some of the things that we're working on and, you know, planning to do.
Mhm. Okay,
Right.
thank you. Well, let's handle the two existing hangars first, since that will be the easiest. And we have a completed lease from Dan Finney for the Irving hangar.
It's just, that's what I'm talking about right there.
And I think I would just look for a motion to approve that one.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to these though.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, isn't there?
So I'll move to accept Daniel and Sharon
PD.
Feeney.
think it is,
She
isn't it?
has a different last name.
I think it's O'Leary.
Yeah.
She's Larry.
Their lease agreement.
I'll second that.
Okay,
You guys can sign it. You need to sign it,
Let's-
then we can give it to Angie.
is there any further discussion on
Yeah.
it? All in favor of approving the lease agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
We'll have to wait for Wade's.
So we
Till
need
next
two more
month.
members, I guess,
Mhm.
right? Yeah, we'll have to wait for Wade. Cause he's still waiting on the lease.
It's in the mail.
Oh,
No, he sent
we're
it.
waiting on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so now left we have Seth for new construction, Brian Foster for new construction, and was there another one? I apologize.
No.
That's it. Okay, so we'll consider Seth first because he was the first in. Do we have a completed lease from you, Seth?
I did drop it off,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, so he's got in here, a 40 by 60 for 2,400 foot. Do we know what,
It's gotta go through.
And
the commission.
that's just an approximation
So-
from what Daryl said, that you can
Yeah.
get out there.
I'll,
You
that
know,
can-
obviously
that you
we'd
can
have to
on
fit
property?
the lot, but we wanna maximize that.
I'll put it on next week's agenda. or something.
So, I mean, it could, I think that would be the max, wouldn't you? Yeah. So it could shrink, but we definitely wanna take the maximum footprint.
yeah, that the lot will allow.
Yeah, correct. No wasted space.
So I think what we would be looking for is a motion to approve pending.
I guess that's my question, since this is a new thing that we're implementing
Right.
here.
Mhm.
Before we approve this lease, do we need these items?
Signed contractor requirements.
And once we have all of these items, then we would approve it all together.
Are you talking about the,
The
Hangar
application,
construction?
but it has like the
Yes.
lease.
no, no.
Well, I think we should make it dependent on hangar plans, color, electrical permit, building permit, correct?
I would think so.
I mean, we haven't done that historically.
Well, we haven't.
I mean, the point of this, right, is to make sure that who's ever building has all of their stuff together, because now it's becoming a higher demand thing. That's why we've gone through this.
Right.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm open to ideas, but I feel like, you know, not that you would be first on the list still, obviously,
Yeah.
but before you go through and approve a lease, it would be part of the package deal, or you can do it pending the rest of the stuff, but then we open up a can of worms of timing, and what if we have somebody show up next month and the list keeps growing?
Right.
So can you acquire your permits without a signed lease, though? Is the next question.
True.
So is the cart, you know, and the horse.
Right.
So if you, and I'm not trying to say it as the lessee here, but if you had preliminary approval for the lot specifically in there, so that you can acquire the permits.
Well, to back up a little bit, it does say, as we wrote it, upon
Yeah.
approval
Yeah.
of your application.
Yeah.
So what
Right.
we're looking for now is an approval, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the first part of the process.
Okay, okay. So we're getting ahead of ourselves. All right, I apologize. Okay, so what we're looking for is a motion to approve Seth's hangar, and of course you'll be recused from
Abstaining,
voting.
yep.
I'll move to approve, Seth's hangar.
I would second it.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay,
Done with it?
Yeah.
Okay.
all right, we already passed around Brian Foster's.
No.
Hey. You didn't need to sign it.
Oh, we
You
did.
guys
sign
have
it.
signed it.
Yeah.
You don't have mine.
Brian, at the time that he called the lease, or the hangar lease was still not
There were some updates being made.
finalized.
okay.
Yet, and then I got that from Daryl afterwards, so he's gonna need I'll get your email, I can send you a
Sure. And we're thinking,
hangar lease.
40 by 60 probably is where we'll land, something
Okay.
like that.
So hopefully by the time we're able to review yours, which will be next month here,
Sure.
we'll have this document to you pending review. And then we'll get a lease from you for approval. Does that sound good?
So can I send the lease immediately, Daryl, or not? I can I, or not? I have to wait.
Well, I don't think there's any reason why you can't have the lease.
Okay, so I can send you the lease,
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
but I have to wait on the hangar application, correct? Because it's not been through.
Did she get all three signatures on the previous one?
Seth signed it also.
You got all
On
three?
the other one, yeah. So we're set on that.
Okay.
Do I need to sign?
Well, it's just asking for three.
Okay, three,
members,
then,
so-
okay.
Okay, so we'll put it on the agenda for next month to review your application.
Sure.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Okay. So Dwight had texted me prior to the meeting. He had an appointment run late, so he just texted some items that was on his report. Mower's back. Grass strip is open. He mowed the rest of the grass strip. Says the grass looks great. There's another item that I had placed on the agenda, fuel meter improvement / replacement. Dwight was already on that. He had ordered a stick that's calibrated to our tank. So I think simple is better. So I think as far as that agenda item goes, it's taken care of. He's got a measuring stick ordered, so I think that's great. He says mower was a bigger expense than I expected. But again, that's been reviewed, so. We sold about 40 gallons a day out of the tank, I guess. he just sent me the numbers, so that's what I have from Dwight. So there's your abbreviated, report. Any comments on the airport manager? Okay, fuel pricing, right now the, wholesale price is about $4.99. That puts us, you know, our goal is to be at 582 in that case. We're at 595. Fuel seems to be picking up. So I guess I would say we'd probably leave it where it is. We're at 595, yeah. So unless anybody has anything to say on that topic. Okay. Is there new business? I have a Angel Flight West letter here.
Yeah, I just got that in the mail. It just came, I gave everybody kind of this is an informational letter, I think.
Does everybody have it? Or should I
I
read
gave
it?
them just those two things. You only have the letter.
I think this is more informational.
Yep.
I'll read it quickly. Greetings from Angel Flight West. My name is Russell Stearns. I'm the director of the outreach for Angel Flight West. Angel Flight West has been giving people free flights for medical or other compelling needs throughout the western United States since 1983. We are only able to do this thanks to the generosity of our amazing network of volunteer pilots. We are in need in Montana for more volunteer pilots to help get people to and from these life-saving appointments. I kindly ask that you please take these rack cards and business cards enclosed and display them in any case. Any pilot seeing them might be interested in helping us out. So if you would get those to Dwight, they'll throw them in the lobby.
Absolutely.
Thanks again for helping us out. Okay?
Does she have more of these? Do you want to put these out in the pilot lounge?
Yeah, we just have Dwight put all these in the pilot lounge, right?
Perfect.
Okay. Is there any other new business? Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
We're pretty dang good.
Well, yeah, we caught up ground there.
Okay. That'd be good. Yeah.
Have we ever been on the
Yeah.
time?